Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and today I am doing the Cozy Christmas book tag. I saw this on Naomi's Bookshelves channel and it was started by Call Me After Coffee. This is full of ice water, by the way, because as soon as I put the sweater vest on top of this turtleneck I started overheating. The first question is Twinkling Lights. What is the most beautiful book you own? And this is a bit of a hard one because y'all know I'm a bit of a cover buy sort of person. And so I own lots of beautiful books with pretty spines. And I think my favorite ever cover, this hurts my soul to take books out of my shelf because they're really hard to put back in because I pack them tightly. But I love this cover so much. The whole fairy tale thing and with the rose and her hair reminds me of my hair. And I'm really, really like drawings of people with hair like mine. But see, how can I get that back in there? Anyway, I like a lot of covers, but I do have another answer for this one, which is this. I don't even remember what it's called. Endymion Spring. It's got all this gold foiling and stuff on it. And all these designs. It's got pretty fonts and little dragons and everything. I love that. 2 is The Perfect Tree. Will you pay more for a prettier edition of a book? And I'm quite a thrifter. I almost never buy new books. A lot of these are new, but that's because of the fire and the insurance paid for them. But before that, the first time I had these books, they were all, the vast majority were thrifted books. And I just have a really hard time shelling out 20 bucks for a single book when I know I can get 20 books for 20 bucks. But for a specific thing to like complete a series that I enjoy, I might pay like up to 10 bucks for a single book, but that's about it. And for pretty editions, I pretty much just wait until I can find them in a thrift store. I don't usually shell out for those. Number 3 is Build a Snowman, Build a Christmassy Book Stack. And for that I went with a little bit of color and a little bit of theme, mostly colors. So we have green and red books. On the bottom is The Menagerie, which I know very little about. You saw it in a relatively recent book haul of mine. Then we have The Little Lame Prince by Dinah Marla Mullock, which I'm aware is not the good word to use for that, but it's about a little prince whose legs don't work because he was dropped as a child, and it's all about how people handled that and how they didn't talk about it because it was unpleasant, and so how that led to bad things because they weren't willing to talk about it. And I really like that whole theme. It's present in a lot of middle grade books, which is interesting. Then we have Rowan Hood Returns, which is another MG book, and it is the last of the Rowan Hood series, which I really enjoyed as a child. It's about Robin Hood's daughter when she's middle grade age, about 12, and how she forms her own little pack of merry men and women, or merry girls and boys, and they doodle around in Sherwood Forest and help people. Then we have The Magic Thief, which is another one from a recent book haul that I have not yet read. And then we have First Snow by Nora Roberts, which is kind of greenish, but is also very snowy on the front. And I haven't read this one, but I want to. Nora Roberts is, of course, a huge romance author. She tends to do trilogies, and I think this is part of a trilogy. A trilogy by her that I have read the entirety of is the Born In trilogy. It's Born in Fire, Born in Ice, Born in Shame, and it's about 3 sisters in Ireland. Question 4, Crackling Fire. What books makes you feel warm and cozy? And there are a lot of those, but because I'm going to use some other ones for a question that's coming up presently, I'm going to use A Turn of Light because it just was so pleasant to read. I read it when I was having a pretty bad depressive episode, but I read the sequel when I was, normal for me, and I like them both the same, so I think it's good for me no matter what mood I'm in. And it was just very comforting. As I've said before, the characters are very good at regulating their own emotions, which makes their emotions have less of an impact on me and is more gentle to my own empathetic feelings. And it's just a very pleasant world with a very slow pace and very sweet characters and a lot of both biological family relationships and found family relationships, and that's very precious to me. Another one I want to mention is I want to agree with the original tag creator and say that Pride and Prejudice is one that very much feels cozy to me, and so is Little Women. I haven't read Little Women. I've only seen the movie, but I want to read Little Women, and I know that if I read it, I will feel very cozy because the movies that I've seen are very good. I've been told by people who have read the books and seen the movies that they're a very good rendition of them. Also, how many y'all are excited to see the new one? Because you're gonna make them every generation or so, every 20 to 30 years apparently, which is great for me because I like retellings, so it's good for me. Number 5 is knee-high socks. I love knee-high socks. I hardly wear anything but knee-high socks. But anyway, what is the longest book you've read? And that's the same book I was talking about earlier, A Turn of Light. It's 840 pages. The only thing I've read that was longer than that was when I read an edition of The Lord of the Rings that was like all 3 of them together. But you know, it's like technically 3 separate books, but he kind of wrote it as one book. But anyway, that was over 1,000 pages. And I read that during a quarter, so I read that fairly quickly for me. For a 1,000-page boring book. I was very interested in it because I love Tolkien's stuff and the worlds he created and the characters and everything, but he writes way too much about the getting from one place to another and you're walking through the forest. I understand that he liked to walk through forests. I get that. But I like to walk through forests too. What I don't like is to read about walking through forests. It's just not something you can really enjoy vicariously as much, at least not the way that Tolkien writes it. Then we have 6 ugly sweaters. What is the ugliest book you own? And I have some that I've locked away in my second bookcase over there because they're just not as aesthetically pleasing as these ones. But for ugliest, I'd have to give the prize to this poor thing, which I'm sure the original cover was quite lovely, but it's used, and by the time I got it, the cover was half ripped off, so poor little book, which I also have not yet read. I do intend to start the Rick Riordan series. I wanted to start it in December, but then got way behind on all my library requests, and I have a huge stack of like 8 over there that I need to read, and I can't read it right now, but it is on the plans to read soon. Also, this is an ugly sweater. Let's see if you can, it's a present. It's a present and it's got shiny things and it says, "From Santa?" I can't read backwards. Anyway, that's what's going on here. Number 7 is Blizzards, a book set in winter or that gives you the dark and the dark vibes and has dark themes or gives you the chills. And for that, I gotta bring up the Golden Compass again. Y'all know I just talked about this a week ago, but it is quite dark. Other than being, you know, set mostly in the Arctic, it's quite dark. Other than the children getting kidnapped, slight spoiler, but I think you could see it coming a mile away. The children are getting killed. Yeah, so, and they're getting killed in a particularly nasty way. So it's very dark. I would not have liked this as a kid because I did not have a resistance to dark stuff in books like I have now. Like, I can stand it now. It's not my favorite, but I would not have liked this as a kid, but I think I will like it a lot as an adult, and I definitely recognize that a lot of people liked it as a kid, and more power to you. I just didn't have the oomph to take dark stuff like that. And number 8 is Home for the Holidays. For rereaders out there, what is a book that rereading makes you feel like coming home? And I think I've talked about this before, but I know I've talked about the Del Toro series in general before, but I think I've specifically talked about how reading it makes me feel like coming home. It's those over there. And they're just very special to me. I read them when I was very much a kid, and I think it was the longest series that I was able to read the entirety of, and that had the most cohesive world and that I felt the most immersed in because of just how I was able to read it. And I was like very young when I was first reading it. I was like 7, and I've continuously reread it over the years. So I've probably once every 1 or 2 years I've reread it. And so I've read it a lot of times, and it is very familiar, and so it definitely feels like coming home when I read that. But it also feels like coming home when I reread the In Death series, which I also talk about a lot, I know. but it is once again a very long series that I've been able to read the entirety of, at least up till now. They keep coming out, but the way the characters are with the fan family and everything, and how you, in every book, you keep coming back to the same house, the same characters, the same side characters, and they're always having an interesting new adventure and interacting with new people, but the core group stays the same and sometimes grabs in little added people one by one. That just feels very cozy and like I'm hanging out with my family. That is the end of the tag. First I want to tag Troy Towell, because he likes to read a lot of cozy books this time of year, so I figure he has great answers for this, although it's very late at the time this is coming out, so I totally get it if it's not on the timeline. I also tag Books with Brandywine and the Dragon Queen's Lair, who is someone I have just recently found because I recently found a tag she created called the Dragon Books tag or something like that. I'll also link that below. I'm planning on doing it soon, but it's all about different types of dragons and related books. So she's a pretty cool lady. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Also, I tag anyone who's watching this. Most of the people who have done this tag have tagged anyone who watches it, so if you go back and watch the original tag, which I'll be linking below, you will also be tagged by her. Anyway, bye!